Welcome. I know you've been watching the news because I realized it's like live stream. We are going to be topical. We're getting more and more topical every single week we go on, and we really didn't. Well, we kind of meant it to be this way, but maybe not actually so topical as. Oh my goodness, the new prime minister of Italy, is she prime minister yet? I'm not quite clear about that. So, Giorgia Meloni, right, goes to Hobbit Camp. I'm so excited. We got to talk about why Italians would be going to Hobbit Camp and what that has to do with. Well, I saw a little clip compilation. I think Paul Joseph Watson posted it, where all of the media people were saying the same thing over and over and over again about far right and Mussolini and, oh my goodness, nationalism. Really dangerous. That's our topic tonight. So welcome to the Mosaic Arc. I hear tell you haunt chats online and learn things that people are anxious to talk about.
I do.
What have you done?
For fun.
What have you been doing
and
this
also
week?
Self-flagellation.
Yes, well, we went from the Queen and Empire last week to nationalism. And how do we get to nationalism now? Why are we worried about that?
Because everybody's obsessing over what it means.
Why is it so hard? I mean, it's like you got a nation of people and they identify in some way and they create a government together, and you got the 19th century. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Maybe we need a bit more history than that version. Tell me what's out there in the internets that people are wondering about.
The interwebs are buzzing because Giorgia Meloni has taken the prime ministership of Italy, and of course everyone was really excited about it, and then everyone was blackpilling and saying it's not going to do anything. She's just another politician. She's saying what we want to hear, and so of course these massive announcements create huge amounts of energy on the internet because everybody wants to see the icon of nationalism emerge. And as you mentioned, like what's the line that every single media talking head has repeated
the most
since she won the
actually
election?
I shouldn't have known it because I watched that whole video. It like went on for minutes, right? The same phrase, the most far right duddy since Mussolini. Those seem to be the thing that mattered. Far right Mussolini.
Yes, so there was that kind of hypnotic phrasing repeated all over the media. So I suppose we're supposed to think of her as a far right, just to the left of Mussolini.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Is she far right? Nearly as far right as Mussolini? No. I'm saying it's like clearly it's that hypnotic phrasing that we're now meant to be scared of. Far right, yes. Which I mean, from what I saw her talk about, is she's worried about family and nation and God, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right.
That's the phrase. Okay. That's the magic phrase that they've chosen to focus on. So I suppose that sounds great, but everyone was very unhappy about it because they said it's not nationalistic enough. So I'm watching everyone having arguments about it and poking, because I love to poke people. And I love to poke people that think that they're right wing more than I like to poke people that think they're left wing.
Why is that? Why is that?
Way more fun. I'm contrarian.
Well, I mean, you did take the name Kilts, for goodness sake. I mean, it might have been a clue.
Well, I like to be on the border of things. That's where everything's most interesting.
Very well said. Yes.
So
the kilts are border people. The kilts are definitely border.
The kilts
are border people. They're totally border people. Yes.
So I suppose I'm like a kind of border patrol for these ideas that are bubbling around. Because I like to test people to see exactly what they believe in and whether or not they're just thinking in phrases or whether or not there are some ideas behind the phrases that they're using. Because for example, the phrase family means completely different things to different people now. We've changed the meaning of words. So if someone is calling themselves a nationalist, I don't make assumptions. I like to know exactly what they mean by that phrase. So I poke, and I'm like a cactus.
But it killed some border people and Scots Irish, and that may come into our conversation tonight. But say something about family. How do you mean it's changed? I mean, we should all, because we are so concerned with our European heritage and the purity of our understand that familia in Rome and Roman in ancient Rome had a particular category that was meaningful. Has that ever come up? Do they go back as far as ancient Rome and say what the ancient Roman family was?
No.
I mean, we're talking about Italy now, so
most people are sort of hovering around the 19th century.
Okay.
I think that's probably where everyone is.
Stuck in the 19th century.
Yeah. There's something about the 19th century. I've not heard any discussion on the ancient European ideas yet.
Well, so I was
only the 19th century.
I was trying out. Milo was trying to learn Latin last year, and because I'm competitive with everybody, including him, why would I be that? I got the books that he was training with, and they're an interesting series because it's a lingua latina, and you learn Latin not through translation, but sort of building up from little stories with pictures and things like that. But they start off with the family and trying to define the family, and it's the father and the mother, the pater familias and the mater familias, and the children and the slaves.
Really?
Oh yeah. So family basically meant household. It's it was an inclusive category in the sense that it's not just the blood group of the parents and the children. It's the whole household. So in fact, I mean, what I find amusing is modern things, like if you watch sitcoms and we're a family, right? You're a family if you're on Friends, or I don't know. I'd never watch Friends. Name a sitcom that people talk about having a family together. I mean, Modern Family is interesting, but any group of friends where they suddenly say, "Oh, this household, we're the real family." Well, in fact, there's good sort of ancient Roman tradition where you kind of did adopt. Men could adopt other men as sons if they wanted to leave their property to them.
You're already wrecking a lot of the definitions I've seen flying around.
Now let's do nationalism. I mean,
this woman is the destroyer of worlds.
History. It's a harsh mistress. You got the moon. Never mind, the moon is a harsh. The history is a harsh mistress. I have a little example. Okay,
please give us one.
So Maloney has said that she envisions herself. I think these Hobbit camps are interesting if they want to, give you Shire level belonging to your kin and your community and your locality and stuff like that. Well, Tolkien, of course, was of that. He described himself as a Hobbit and liking that. He was also, sorry to tell you guys, Amazon watchers and so forth, really against American cosmopolitanism. So the degree to which you want to, homogenize the world so that we all look exactly the same in those forms. He explicitly wrote to Christopher in 1943 saying it'll be horrible if this comes to pass. And he's actually in the letter complaining about a number of things, including Winston Churchill. He says, he's talked about Stalin as that bloodthirsty old murderer, but I also admit that in the photograph, our little cherub WSC actually looked the biggest ruffian present. Interesting. Humph. Well, I wonder if we survive this war, if there will be any niche, even of sufferance left for reactionary back numbers like me and you. The bigger things get, the smaller and duller or flatter the globe gets. It is going to be all one blasted little provincial suburb. When they have introduced American sanitation, morale pep, it's a funny morale pep, right? Feminism, and mass production throughout the Near East, Middle East, Far East, USSR, the Pampas, El Gran Chaco, the Danubian Basin, Equatorial Africa, hither, further, and inner Mumbo land, Gondwana land, Lhasa, and the villages of darkest Berkshire. How happy we shall be. At any rate, it ought to cut down travel. There will be nowhere to go. So people will, I opine, go all the faster. Colonel Knox says 1/8 of the world's population speaks English, in quote, and that this is the biggest language group. If true, damn shame, say I. May the curse of Babel strike all their tongues till they can only say ba ba. It would mean much the same. I think I shall have to refuse to speak anything but Old Mercian. Now, ba ba is interesting because that's what Paul Joseph Watson used to say. Look at the media going the same thing that they're all saying about Maloney. Ba ba, far right, Mussolini far right, Mussolini ba 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 ba. It's like clearly the media network has, they're in that homogeneity that Tolkien is frustrated with. But look what he's saying. He's making jokes about how everything's going to be American and morale pep and feminism and mass production from the Near East, Middle East, Far East, USSR, Pampas, El Gran Chaco, the Danubian Basin, Equatorial Africa, and then nonsense places, hither, further, in Inner Mumbo Land, Gondwana Land, Lhasa, and the villages of darkest Berkshire. So even regions within England, he's saying, will all then, be the same. And I want to speak Old Mercian. Which rather suggests that even he's famous as writing in English. To him, English was already a problem, this imperial language that had absorbed all of these other regions and dialects. And what on earth is Old Mercian? Do any of your chats know what Old Mercian is?
No. I would ask them and check, but
I bet they don't.
I might do that later.
I bet I didn't even. So when I'm in graduate school in Cambridge, in East Anglia, I wonder if they know what East Anglia is. I'm in Cambridge in East Anglia, and there's first or second month I was there, I can't even remember. We're in a graduate seminar, and someone's giving this whole paper on Mercia, and I'm like, where's Mercia? I've never heard. I don't know. Mercia, what on earth is she talking about? It's like, it's a real place, apparently. It was this actual region. It's a kingdom. I mean, we don't talk about Anglo-Saxons. Maybe we've heard of Northumbria. Has anybody here heard of Old Mercian? Anybody here? The language of the kingdom of Mercia, Casey says, yes. And Mike, you're right. Mike 1000, he fought the homogenization of language by inventing new ones. Well, interestingly, Tolkien is so fascinating because he understood languages had to grow and have life and have history, which is why he started writing his stories. He claimed that languages exist insofar as a people speak them and there's stories written in them. But Tolkien was never about, studying only dead languages because he wanted them dead or preserved in amber or something like that, perspex or whatever you might preserve things in. That nations,
formaldehyde,
like languages, have to have growth and history and change. That anything that's fixed in the past and has no life is a dead thing. It's a fossil. It's a taxidermy specimen. Mummified, in fact, yes. and remember, it's like saying the problem with the rings of power that they've set it in Numenor and are not recognizing that the fall of the Numenorians was because they wanted to stop time, and they were building pyramids and trying to never die and doing human sacrifice because the desire to freeze a culture kills it.